On The Go Media proudly presents Between the Ropes with your hosts, Colt Powers and Hunter Dietz.
Welcome back to Between the Ropes. I'm Hunter Dietz. As always, this is Colt Powers, my co-host. Very exciting kickoff to Season 2 of Between the Ropes today. A very fun interview with pro wrestling legend Gerald Brisco. And as you can see here, we got the Brisco Bros Body Shop shirt hanging up. And boy, what a fun interview we've got coming up for this. Colt, any thoughts?
Just so excited for, the fan in me that we get to work with these guys, and the fan in me of Jerry Brisco. You and I have talked off air before. My generation, your dad's generation, probably your generation, know Jerry Brisco as one of the Stooges. He's known as a hardcore champion. They don't necessarily always know or realize the rich history that Jerry Brisco and his brother Jack Brisco, the Brisco brothers, have had on the wrestling industry. And even collegiate history as well. I mean, his amateur background. So hopefully we're going to be touching on base with him on that. We're going to be touching base with him on some of the behind the scenes, especially with the upcoming Hall of Fame weekend happening just down the road from us in Waterloo, Iowa. Cedar Falls, Waterloo, the Cedar Valley. The Dan Gable Wrestling Museum. We're going to be able to talk with him and talk about some of the events that are coming up for that.
Yeah, well, and we never actually made the official announcement on this podcast, so if you haven't been in tune to any of our social media or anything like that, we should probably mention.
We recorded it, but we couldn't air it at the time.
Yeah,
so.
It was not public when we made the announcement, and then it never got out there officially to the podcast. We are the official media partners of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum and George Tragos Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo, the birthplace of the NWA, kind of where all of pro wrestling can be traced back to today. And so we're so excited to get to partner with them. They're going to have a great softball game July 11th. JBL and his JBL Lariats versus Medusa and Medusa's Mad Balls.
Yes.
So it's going to be so much fun. We're going to get to produce it. We're going to be there. And there's all these events that weekend. Anything that you can do to get yourself out of those plans. Family reunion, ditch it. Doesn't matter. You got to come down to Waterloo because that is where it's happening. So many events.
So you get to get signings, and some of the pro wrestlers that are going to be there, a couple of big names that you'll recognize. I mean, we can announce these here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of names that you're gonna recognize, especially if you are a current fan. One of the top ones we have coming, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got Nick Nemeth coming, and that is huge. WWE star Dolph Ziggler, now in TNA. Nick Nemeth, same guy, but him and his brother, I believe, are going to be there.
Yeah, also getting inducted for the Frank Gotch Award, Jeff Jarrett. Lou Thesz Award, the Welch Fuller family. The Impact Award to James Beard. The Jack Brisco Red Belt Award, Jimmy Garvin. The Jim Melby Award, Tony Richards. George Tragos Award to Josh Barnett. I don't know if you've caught any of Josh Barnett's Bloodsport that he promotes, but that is an exciting event that he does. Vern Gagne Trainer Award to Jazz and Rodney Mack, and the Gordon Soley Award to Ken Resnick. These are just legends in the field, and Colt, you go to a lot of these conventions and things where you can do meet and greets and there's signings and all that sort of stuff. How is this different? Because this is so much different.
This is a lot different. I've been to this in the past. There are so many of them in one spot, and they are so... It's a very down-to-earth event. You can talk with these guys and have conversations, and it's just like when you and I are sitting here together, and they'll tell stories. One of the upcoming events, I think, is Beer with the Boys.
Yes.
And
yes,
so they're going to be, it's a little event that you can, I think, ask some questions and hear some of the behind the scenes and the road stories. And
yes,
I mean, it is so down to earth and able to talk and just shoot the shit with these guys, basically,
Yeah, and this is going to be such an exciting weekend. And so like we said, when you're in the Waterloo area for this, get yourself a lifetime membership to the museum. Make sure to go to all these events. If you have any interest in wrestling, amateur or pro, this is the place for you to be, because it's the meeting of both worlds with legends from both. Dan Gable is going to be there. The great Dan Gable is going to be there. Obviously, Jim Miller. The people that we're talking about that are so important both to our local area and nationally to fans of the sport. It's just going to be a really exciting time, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
I am so excited. And talking about that lifetime membership and the events, this is one of those events, if you're like me and you've gone to Comic-Cons and stuff, you're dropping a ton of money. This is so affordable, and it's a family-friendly event. Bring the kids. And when my kids were little, I took them to this, and we met Jerry Brisco. That's where I got the shirt years ago when they were little. And Jim Ross, Edge was there, numerous years ago. Kurt Angle's been there. Brock Lesnar's been there. So many of these guys.
There's just so many people that could show up. I mean,
people could just show up.
It's interesting to everybody.
Yeah,
you don't know who's going to come, even if they're a part of the industry. Who's going to come as a fan?
Yes.
You never know who you could run into. And so with that, I do want to get into the interview now. And so now we're going to talk to the great Jerry Brisco. Colt, this is the start of something great.
This is the start of something great. This is season 2. This is where things are kicking off into a higher gear for us here on the Go Media, and between the ropes, it's the start of something big and fun.
Let's go to the interview. Our guest today, Hall of Famer in WWE and in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Waterloo, the George Tragos Thesz Museum and Hall of Fame. One of our favorites to watch on TV from a long time ago, and we're so excited to get so excited to get to have this opportunity to talk to you, Mr. Jerry Brisco. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm down here in finally sunny Florida, and finally getting back to normal weather down here. We're supposed to hit the 80s today, so I'm a happy camper. I live out on a small ski lake, fishing lake, and I like to go out and wet a line every once in a while and catch me some bass and some brim and everything. So I couldn't be better, man. Retirement's treating me great.
Well, that's awesome.
That's great. That's great. And we wanted to point out to you too. Colt found this that he had. We got a Brisco Brothers Body Shop shirt up here.
I got that from you.
That is beautiful. What a beautiful shirt. A lot of people, I still can't believe, the shop became so popular back in, the Attitude Era, as they call it there. Vince was kind enough to let me wear it on air. And every time I go in, we'd tape on Monday nights, of course, and then I'd go home, and my office manager she said, I can always tell when you're on TV. She said, the phone don't stop ringing. I said, are they good phone calls or bad? She said, well, they're mixed. So people from, happy and are pissed off at me or whatever. But, we would have lines out in front of our shop where during spring training, the Yankees spring training is like 2 blocks from the body shop. So all the Yankee fans, they would come up and see the body shop. They'd come outside. They want little autographs. They'd want little stick-ems or ink pens or notepads, whatever we had, to pass out to them. So I'm just really thankful that Vince allowed me to advertise. We became the most popular body shop in the entire world, I think.
Absolutely.
I could believe it, and for good reason, too. We wanted to talk a little bit about, you went into the Hall of Fame here in Waterloo in 2005. You were an inductee. Since that time, how did you kind of get more involved as more than just an inductee?
Well, in 2005, the Hall of Fame was called the International Hall of Fame, and it was down in Newton, Iowa. And a good friend of mine, Mike Chapman, Lou Thesz, and Bill Murdoch, and Charlie Thesz, and a couple of other people, decided, Iowa needed a Hall of Fame. Well, Mike's an amateur wrestling historian, as you guys probably know who Mike Chapman is, and he's a very astute man and what a good person he is. So he got with Lou Thesz and a couple other old timers and George Tragos and decided, let's open up a Hall of Fame, an Iowa Hall of Fame, but let's also include all forms of wrestling in it. So, of course, professional wrestling was put in there, and I was inducted in the Newton when we were still headquarters in Newton there. A few years later, I'm awful on dates. I'm almost 80 years old, so I'm awful on dates. And so I can't remember what year they finally, the lease ran out there in Newton. Their claim to fame is more people passed by us than any other, because the interstate was right there on where the Hall of Fame was.
Sure.
Well, yeah, you got the key word, they were passing us by. So they decided to move us to Waterloo, and the city of Waterloo being Dan Gable's hometown, that's when Mike got Dan involved, and we were able to get one of those sweetheart leases from the city of Waterloo, where hopefully we'll be there the rest of the eternity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and obviously Waterloo, very important to pro wrestling history. It's where the NWA was founded in
right down the street.
Yep, right down the street at the Hotel President. And so that's such a great place for history. And as it's now been announced, getting to be the local media partners of the Hall of Fame and getting to work with you guys on this upcoming Hall of Fame weekend in July. We wanted to ask you also a little bit about, you're doing a softball game this year with the Legends. How did that idea kind of come about, and what are you looking to see from it?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys for finally getting involved. We've searched, and I have a very stiff board of directors that just don't want to be partners with anybody, and if we can't find the right partner, we basically want to do it on our own. But you guys reached out to me about doing this interview, and I said, well, I'm always doing the promotion part, but that's the professional wrestling part of me, and I said, well, why don't we become media partners? And you guys graciously accepted it. So first of all, I'm thrilled to death to have you guys on board. I'm going to look for a tremendous change of putting all kinds of pressure on you. But we're always looking for something for our fans to do. We've turned into, when they brought it up from Newton, they had some administration issues, and, they changed directors and all that stuff. And about 2 years into the tenure there in Waterloo, Mike Chapman decided it was time to step aside, and there were some issues going on with the board of directors, and so Mike stepped aside. So the pro wing of the Hall of Fame was kind of ignored to the point where we're only 1 day event there, and so I came up for the grand opening of Waterloo. Mike told me what was going on. He was unhappy that switching it to 1 day and everything. Man, that sucked. So about a year later, Mike decided it was time for him to retire. Right after the big flood came, Mike retired from the Hall of Fame there. And Stillwater, Oklahoma, which is home to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, decided to take it over. They knew how valuable a Hall of Fame is in Iowa, and Waterloo, Iowa, what a better place than home of Dan Gable. So they knew they had the right venue for it and the right city for it. All they needed was somebody to take it by the horns and kind of ride it out. So Leroy Smith, who's the executive director of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater and oversees the Waterloo chapter, called me. I've known Leroy. Of course, Leroy's no Cowboy, Oklahoma State Cowboy. We both were on the Cowboy team, and Leroy's brother, of course, is the great John Smith, one of the greatest freestyle, call it collegiate wrestlers of all time. So Leroy called me and asked me if I would get back heavily involved. We had a meeting up in New York, and we sat down at a restaurant, and he kind of laid out what we want to do. And I said, Leroy, I don't want to come back if it's just going to be a 1 day event. I said, that just doesn't do me any good at all to try to take it or try to get people to come to Waterloo. for one day. And he said, I agree with you. You want me to do? I said, first of all, I want to take it back to the way it originally was, 3 days. So he granted me that wish and everything, and I took it over. Like I said, I can't remember what year it was, but now we've gone back to 3 days, and actually it was 2 days. With Thursday just an arrival day, but we've turned Thursday into a big event day now, and so thanks to Dan Gable and the staff there, Coach Miller and Gabby there at the Hall of Fame building there. So we've turned it back in where Thursday, Friday, Saturday is just full of it. So we're always looking for things to do. And I got 2 new board members this year, John Bradshaw Layfield and Medusa. And they're both very aggressive young people that want to grow that museum, having the same dedication, same passion that I do. And Deborah and John came up with why don't we do a softball game? Get the fans involved, get the local media and celebrities and local celebrities involved, and have a softball game and see how that turns out. So that's kind of how we kind of morph into having you guys as our partner.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. And you had a couple of questions about the board, and you were kind of interested in some of that behind the scenes stuff, right?
I really like the behind the scenes stuff. So just curiosity, is the board, are you guys all based in Waterloo, or is there a lot of members of the board? How do you guys decide who's on the board?
Well, that's a great question. Our board is scattered from Colorado to Texas to Ames and to Bethesda, Maryland, up and down here in Florida. Our board grows as our need grows forward to add additional members onto it. When I was there, we had myself, who was overseeing the growth of the professional wing, the Tragos wing of it, and it was along with Chad Olson, who's out of Ames, Iowa. There, Chad's invaluable. And at the time, we had a gentleman also by the name of Troy Peterson, who was an invaluable asset to our board. He had some personal issues. He had to resign from the board, and when he resigned, I knew I was going to have 2 or 3 people to take Troy's place, and then we had Gloria out in Colorado, who's kind of our general manager of our board and keeps us all of us guys in line here. So had her come on. So I asked Medusa and I asked JBL if they would come on and add their expertise to it. Medusa is a fantastic business person. Not only, as you guys know, she was a world champion professional wrestler, but she's also a champion monster truck driver. So she as far as entertainment goes, she knows how to entertain people and what it takes to entertain. So I feel I got probably the best pro wrestling board of anywhere, of any organization in existence right now. So that's kind of overview of James Beard, who is a well-respected referee globally, is also on our board. He's out of Texas there. Like I say, we keep it small so we can keep it nice and personal. It's not a million different ideals. And everybody has a say to it. It isn't, all right, Brisco, you're the guy. It's not like that. It's all of us. And we don't make a decision. We don't make a move with our organization unless we're all 100% on board with it. It keeps everything in harmony there.
Well, and before we wind up talking a little bit about your career, I do have another question about the Hall of Fame this year. I've got the list of the inductees here, and there's some really big names and some.
Ooh, what a great list they put together this year.
Absolutely, and Nick Nemeth, Jeff Jarrett, Jimmy Garvin, Josh Barnett, just to name a few. And when you look at this year's class, this feels like a really special class this year. And so we talked a little bit about who is on the board. How do you guys decide who gets to go into the Hall of Fame? Is there a criteria that you have to meet or something?
Well, with everybody going on, Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler. With Nick going on, we have that's the main one. We have honoree. And for the honoree, he or she has to have been involved in amateur wrestling in somehow. in somewhere for them. They had to either be a coach or an athlete or somehow they were involved in the sport of amateur wrestling. That sets them apart from all of our other honorees. And so Nick was a wrestler at Kent State University. During his time frame, he had a pin record. Actually, had the pin record at Kent State University. Don't ask me a number because I can't recall the number that he had. But whatever it was, it had to be impressive because Kent State University has put out a lot of great amateur wrestlers over the years. So we're thrilled to death to have him and his brother Ryan's coming in to introduce him. So we'll have the Nemeth brothers there. From what I hear, they're going to put on a little comedy show for us too during the weekend. So that should be fantastic. So we're always adding things in. We had the Thesz Award, which of course is the next award. It takes somebody, and they don't have to be all of our sub awards. They don't have to have an involvement in amateur wrestling, but they had to be a successful professional wrestler and added something outside the business. Brought credit to the sport of professional wrestling through either business or however else that they've done it there. So, we have that. Then we've created a couple of new awards, the Impact Award, which James Beard is getting this year. It's just the impact of somebody like a referee or announcer, somebody that really had a great impact on the overall picture of professional. James he's well respected, like I said, as a referee, not only as a referee, but somebody behind the scenes, that takes care of the rings, take care of the publicity, all that stuff. And so then we added the Jack Brisco Spotlight Award, which is another award. You call it the Red Belt Award because Jack would present when he won the world title over Harley Race. He presented a red belt, but the minds of the NWA, which was created right there in Waterloo, Iowa, as we said before, decided they put a velvet cover over that belt. Well, anybody that's ever had anything with velvet on it, knows when it gets a little damper and thing, it starts sagging. So you're wrestling, you put that belt in your bag, you travel 2,000 miles to the next city. By the time that red velvet was just dragging, by the time the next day, Jack won it. He had won it in Houston, Texas, that on a Friday night. On a Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, he was on an airplane headed to Atlanta, Georgia, to make a TV spot. By the time he got to Atlanta, that red velvet was just drooping where he couldn't hardly even wear it on TV. They had to do all kinds of alterations on it again. So they got rid of the velvet right away. But it's kind of unique. So we had the Red Belt Award named after my brother Jack Brisco. One of Jack's kids that he helped mentor as he was coming up in the business, Jimmy Garvin, who was a fabulous free bird and started wrestling here in the state of Florida when he was like 13 years old for the late great Eddie Graham and his family down here. So Jimmy is receiving that award, which Jimmy is just overexcited about because, like I said, Jack was a true mentor to Jimmy, and so we bring their names up in our board meeting, and we all got a vote on them. If there's one negative vote, we'll just table the guy and tell then we'll bring him back up and until they get 100% vote on it. So we don't always agree on things, just like any other board, but to make this thing work, you eventually have to say the case to convince the naysayer that you're nominating the right guy. So it's basically guys and girls who have excelled in the sport of professional wrestling, but also on their personal life, has added a lot of recognition to the sport of professional wrestling.
Well, and so certainly, like you said, the board wouldn't have any issues with the inductees this year. All incredibly defensible, absolutely deserving inductees. But you did talk about amateur wrestling, and you actually have a background in amateur wrestling. You wrestled at Oklahoma State, right?
Yes, sir. I wrestled for the Cowboys back in the early 60s. I followed my brother there. I started amateur wrestling actually a year before my brother started wrestling. He was a basketball player in middle school, and so in elementary school, we had just moved to Blackwell, Oklahoma. They just started little league, little tight like wrestling organization. So I wanted to do it just to see what I could do. And so I wanted to be a heavyweight. I didn't want to be any other weight. And I probably weighed, 40 pounds, and the heavyweight was 65 pounds. Everybody in the weight class outweighed me by 20 pounds. And my brother Jack said, Gerald, you're going to get killed. You're going to get killed there. And I said, well, let me try anyway. So I finally talked to coaches, and my family was the biggest sell job, and it'll let me wrestle heavyweight. And I won the damn tournament. And the funny thing about it is I ended up in the finals. My first tournament, I ended up in the final, pinning my way to the finals. And so my opponent was the principal, middle school principal, my brother's principal, and he said, either you were going to get beat quick, or you better pin this guy in under 20 seconds. I ended up pinning him in 19 seconds. He said, if you don't pin him in under 20 seconds, don't come home. I was scared to death of my brother, so I pinned him in 19.
Well, and that's actually a great segue into our next question for you, which was how does the transition happen between you're an amateur wrestler and your brother Jack obviously was a pro wrestler. You start teaming with him in the late 60s. How does that wind up happening? How does that conversation take place?
Well, my mom, she really didn't care for either one of us going into that line of work there. She wanted to be teachers and coaches, and all along I thought that's what I would end up doing, is being a teacher and a coaching wrestling, high school wrestling. That's really what I wanted to do. But excuse me. We grew up in a little town, Blackwell, Oklahoma. 16 miles, and anybody with professional wrestling mind will know this name, and amateur wrestling experience will know this. Danny Hodge was in a little town, Perry, Oklahoma, just 15 miles away from us. So Danny, of course, during high school, he's always in the local papers, and when you're a small town, local papers share stories so they can have enough to put in their papers. So Danny was always talked about, and all of a sudden here we started seeing Danny Hodge on TV. Of course, we were both Hodge fans because of his high school and collegiate wrestling days. So we man, this is kind of cool. So we saw that's when we kind of got hooked on professional wrestling, was watching Danny Hodge become a professional wrestler. So something we wanted to do, and you guys will love this story here. Now I'm going to take you back in history. My brother Jack was a great high school athlete, all-state football player. Well, you guys remember the name Bud Wilkinson from the University of Oklahoma? I mean, he was the Bear Bryant before Bear Bryant. He won like 40, Oklahoma won like 45, 47 games in a row. Well, he come to our house one day to sign Jack for a football scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. I just so happened to be in a little town called Ponca City, Oklahoma, wrestling in a tournament, and I won first place. I was so happy and everything. When we pulled it into my neighborhood at the end of sitting on right in front of our house with this big red station wagon with a big OU sign on the back, and I'd forgotten all. I was so excited about Bud Wilkinson being and coming to our house. I didn't know how whose car it was. I would put two to two together. I went running in the house. They were just walking out the door, and I ran right into Bud Wilkinson, dropped my little trophy. Bud reached over, picked it up, brushed it off. Well, it isn't broken, young man. Where'd it? He spent about 10 minutes to ask me, man, my mom, well, she was so, that's where you're going, Jack. That's where you're going. Yeah, you're going to play football for Bud Wilkinson. Well, okay. Fast forward about 2 weeks, Jack signed a letter of intent, all that stuff. Fast forward about 2 weeks. Well, Myron Roderick, the wrestling coach at Oklahoma State University, heard that Jack was a big wrestling fan. And so the pro wrestling promoter in Oklahoma was Leroy McGurk, who was also a national champion at Oklahoma State University. So Myron called Leroy and said, Leroy, I got this kid I'm trying to sign, but he wants to go play football for Bud. But he loves pro wrestling, wants to be a pro wrestler. Can you call him or go by there and tell him that, when he graduates and wins a national title at Oklahoma State University, that you'll have a spot in pro wrestling waiting for him? And Leroy said, yeah, I'd be glad to help Myron. So not only did Leroy call Jack, but the next weekend he sent 3 wrestlers over to to our house to meet Jack and persuade Jack not to go to OU and play football. So that was the recruiting back in the late 50s and early 60s. Our coaches did.
That's awesome.
So we both ended up at Oklahoma State University. I went through high school, a couple of state finals and all that stuff, and earned me a scholarship to Oklahoma State University and followed my brother who had won a national title there. So that's basically how I ended up at Oklahoma State. And then my career is funny how the internet is. It's so great, you know. The other day I was looking in what is it, X or Facebook or one of them, and one of the wrestling historians who's in our Hall of Fame had a picture from a Great Plains tournament, which was in Lincoln, Nebraska, and it was basically the last tournament I wrestled for Oklahoma State. I blew my knee out in that tournament. I got beat 11-4, but the thing about it is those Resolite mats, those real soft mats, had just come out, so the guys didn't know how to handle them. So in Lincoln, they put ice in, so they rolled those mats out over the ice, and they were like cement. We would have been better off. So I hurt my knee and blew my knee out at that tournament. That was basically the end of my wrestling career. Next year, I tried to come back, and I got infectious hepatitis. I was working for the university. Roderick had got me a job painting apartments. I went to some apartment that was contaminated with hepatitis, and of course, my system picks it up, and so I have to set out that year. I said, my career is over with. So that's when I called my brother. I said, Jack, I'd not like to be. Well, have you talked to Mom? I said, no, I'm afraid to. Well, I'm not talking to her. You got to have that conversation. So then, of course, I get my nerve up, and I had that conversation with my mother, and she said, I don't want you to, but if that's what you want to do it and do it well. So that was her advice.
Well, and that's such a great story. And talking about your brother Jack, he was an NWA champion, and he was, you know, cream of the crop, top level main eventer. And I wonder if today a lot of the newer fans don't recognize just how important he was at that time. Stepping aside from your personal relationship, obviously with him as your brother, just as a wrestling fan, how big of a deal is Jack Brisco?
Well, Jack Brisco should be a bigger deal than what he is. I mean, he came along, of course, before the cable TVs and the internet and all that stuff. So, you know, it's just from wrestling historian to Jack was, of course, an NCAA champion, two-time All-American, just one of those athletes that could do just about anything in the world that he set his mind to doing. He was agile. He could do any style. He could roughhouse, and he had that Jack Brisco voice that really convinced you that when he got mad that he was going to get revenge on whoever he is. He kind of inspired a change in the business at the time. You know, we're really lucky when we come along because there were also two other brothers from the state of Texas. Anytime you have Texans and you have Oklahomans, and they were cowboys, and of course we're Native Americans. And I'm talking about the Funk brothers, those egg-sucking dog Funk brothers. So they happened to come along, and so you had four athletes there at the same time that could really, really mix it up, and had always had that issue, whether it be Oklahoma, Texas, Cowboy, Indian, or whatever, or you're champion and I'm not champion. We always had an issue there. And that rivalry ended up going around the world, and that was one of the first big major rivalries that during our generation as our sport I'd ever seen. So.
And also, kind of moving along down your career, I read that you were actually the person, you and maybe your brother, the ones to discover Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
How crazy is that, looking back, knowing how Hulk Hogan affected the industry, that had it not been for you, nobody might know who Terry Bollea was?
You say might there, and I agree with you on might, because that guy was so talented he would have been discovered sooner or later. But yeah, you know, he was a big wrestling fan. He was 6'6" or whatever he was. I hate he wasn't 6'6", he's only 6'5". Okay, 6'5" or 6'7", whatever he was. He was tall. He was a big guy, but he always sat like 5th or 6th row ringside at Tampa Armory down there every Tuesday night when we'd have. So of course, you know, when you go out to the ring, you always look around. We're part of the promotion. We own part of the promotion, so we're always looking for talent, you know. So I happened to scan the audience, and there's a big guy, and he had a full head of hair at the time, and so Man, that's a big guy. So we did the little questions, if you want to know anything, ask some of the little girls running around there. They can tell you who everybody is. Who is that big? Oh, that's Terry. He plays in a rock band out this bar out there. He's a big fan. I always see him every Tuesday night. Man, I sure would like to get him in the business. Yeah, why don't you go out and talk to him? So we went out one night. We kind of coming in early from a road trip. Went out to a little bar he was playing at, and it was quite a scene. Here's a 6'6" guy out there, whatever height he is, playing this bass guitar. And back in those days, the platform shoes were in vogue, so he had another 4 or 5 inches, so he looked like he was 8 footer sitting there playing a little bitty toothpick, looked like a bass guitar with these little guys, normal size guys in the band. So one of the little barmaids that was tending the bar, can you set us up where we can talk to Terry at break? So she went to talk to Terry, and Terry said, yeah, I'd love to talk to those guys. So we kind of set him up a tryout with the great hero Mad Suda, and of course everybody knows what happened there. His history. He got his ankle, I wouldn't say broke, but he got it severely bruised. I mean, it was severely bruised where it swelled up on him, and but he came back in 2 weeks, showing us that he really wanted to be a wrestler. Came back and withstood all the punishment and all the torture that Mad Suda could deal to him, and hey man, this kid's got what it takes. Let's get him in the business there. So that's basically how Hogan's story into the wrestling business.
Wow, that's awesome. And like you said, just that introduction and having you there, right time, right place, that kind of leads, discovering Hogan helps lead to, you're behind the scenes throughout the years working with WWF and WWE, bringing in talent. And is that's something you still do to this day, is it not?
True, yeah. And it's just kind of cool how our careers kind of paralleled each other. When Terry went on to become a great star, I was getting out of the business. And I took a job. Vince asked me to take a job with him, and and creative part and promotional part of helping grow WWE. Of course, Terry was a big hub of that wheel there, and so I could always get Terry to do interviews like we're doing today, where no other promoters throughout the United States. And they call me, Brisco, how do you get Hogan to do all this? I said, think back, I'm the one that got him in this business, so he kind of owed me. So, but Terry was great like that to me. I mean, he always had that appreciation that I helped him out. He helped me out in so many ways in this business. I could never thank him enough.
Wow, and that's really an interesting thing, because like Colt mentioned, your impact on the business beyond what you did in the ring, I think even behind the scenes you're seen as more of a mover in everything that's happened over the last however many years, and so being able to give you the appreciation that I think you deserve for that is very important.
Thank you.
There was another guy that you got the opportunity to share the screen with that was also a big mover behind the scenes, and that's Pat Patterson. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Pat?
Yeah, Pat was a guy that was so well respected in our business. When I was first starting out, I left Oklahoma, and Jack had left Australia, and the promoter down there was from Oklahoma. And in our business, as it is probably in your business, it's not always, your talent level, but it's who you know to give you that opportunity to help you raise your talent level. So Jack had been in Australia, promoter from Oklahoma, and Jack said, hey, I got a younger brother that's just getting in the business, can you use him down there? So I was sent down there to Australia and spent a year down there working for the great Jim Barnett, Great Lake Jim Barnett. But it came time for me to leave. So Jim said, where are you going to go? And I said, well, probably back to Oklahoma. And he said, hey, kid, you got too much talent. You need to make some money. You need to go one of the bigger territories. And I said, I agree with you, but I got no connections, And I wasn't going to run off my brother's coattail at that time there. He said, well, let me make you a couple of calls. He said, I'm good friends with Roy Sharge. He said, I think he can get in there. But I've been reading all the magazines since I've been in the business. I want to see Pat Patterson, Ray Stevens, San Francisco. And I thought, man, I know my skill level. And I don't want to go someplace that I'm just going to be, kind of floundering around in first or second matches or mid-card match. I didn't want to do that. And so there was a tag team in Australia, Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen, who were huge superstars in North Carolina for Jim Crockett Sr., Jim Crockett Promotion. And they really took a liking to me, and I was fortunate enough to work a few tag teams with them. So they got me booked in the Carolinas, and so it worked out so good because my brother's a big star, huge star, right down the road in Florida, and I'm holding the championship belt in the Carolinas, so we're able to interchange, and that's really kind of where that tag team had kind of started going, was through Eddie Graham and Jim Crockett Sr., where the Briscoes and Funks started, being on TV. Then we expanded over to Georgia and all that stuff. So we had, between living at different age, we were able to swap back and forth. He was able to come to Carolina, I was able to go to Florida, either as single or as a tag team, and work with whoever they had available. So that's kind of my road trip, my footprint on how I got into back into the States. It was through Jim Barnett and Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you mentioned a lot about tag teaming and obviously teaming with your brother. We were curious to know, was there a favorite team that you worked with? You mentioned the Funks. Were they your favorite? Was there maybe some other teams that you really enjoyed working with?
Well, I always hate answering that question because it eliminates somebody that I know I had great matches with, but I just don't think of at the moment.
Sure.
But two tag teams really come to mind. Of course, you got to start with the Funk brother, Dory and Terry. I mean, that feud lasted how long? 20, 30 years. People are still talking about it today, 50, 60 years later. So that had a hell of an impact on the business. But and right at the end of our career, we got involved with two young men for the Tag Team World Championship, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood in the Carolinas, where we were able to kind of change our personality, not be the goody two-shoes, and leave that to Ricky and Jay, and kind of be the aggressor old-timers, and say, hey, we've never had the world title, we've had every tag team belt that there is, what's true, and I think that's what helped the angle go along as well as it did, because we're fighting for something that we'd never had before. We'd never been recognized as a World Tag Team Championship. And that was one of our last. I knew this was Jack's last run. He was wanting to retire and just go to that Brisco Brothers body shop, that T-shirt behind you there. Go there and then help manage the body shop. So we did that for a year, Ricky and Jay, and it turned out 10 times better than anybody ever thought it would be. I mean, everybody, well, you guys are such solid baby faces here in the Carolinas, it's not going to work. But we didn't really change our style. We just got more aggressive and kind of, we've been the rules. We know the rules better than anybody because we've been around longer than anybody. So we know how to bend those rules to our favor. We'd always break on a 5 count. The referee get to 4, we'd break. As soon as the referee quit breaking, we'd hit him back again, and make him count again. But we just became more aggressive, more arrogant, more cocky. Hey, we've got all these titles. You guys, what do you guys have? You're little local champions here. We've done everything in the world there is to do. You guys are, And Ricky and Jay were the perfect foil for us. So those guys there. And then after that, the last one I'll name is Dick Murdoch and Adrian Donna. So we had a hell of a run up in the New York area with those guys there, until they wanted to do the same thing with Jack and I, with Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham. Jack said, I don't want to wrestle with two young guys anymore. I'm through. So he hung it up after that. He wouldn't go for that. So and that's when I kind of hooked. I got Pat Patterson. We were talking about Pat, but the reason I didn't go to San Francisco was because of Pat Patterson. So I'd never met Pat in person. So I was in Georgia, and Barnett wanted to put a Southern belt on me. So Pat, one of those, he wanted the belt down in Rio de Janeiro like he did in Chicago. So he came into Georgia, dropped the belt to me, and that's when I first started becoming friends with Pat. And then when I got to New York, working for Vince and everything, I always respected his work, and the guy was like an encyclopedia with wrestling. You ask him a question, he had date figures, numbers, everything that you want to know, just instantly right on. It was like a wrestling savant. The guy was fantastic, and what a person to work with. What a learning tool he was to work with.
Well, and you did work with Vince for so many years, but did a lot of that connection that you guys had kind of start when Vince took over the Georgia time slot in 1984, I think it was?
Yeah, April of '84, whatever it was.
Yeah. That time for you, were you excited to be working more closely with Vince, or a lot of times we hear that story kind of told from other people's perspectives, and I've never heard your perspective on it, of whether or not that time is an exciting opportunity, or if it's, oh man, we hate to see this go.
Well, the whole thing, people ask me a lot of questions about the Georgia cell and would I do it all over again. I'd probably do it all over again. I'd probably think, some other alternatives that I had, but we did our due diligence. We did everything according to our stockholders' agreement. We shopped it. We shopped our stock to other partners, and we had one partner that was disgruntled and we really didn't get along with personally. In the ring, professional, we got along with tremendously, but as business people, we could not get, and everybody knows I'm talking about Ole. So we just didn't get along with Ole on the business side of it. The business, our company under the leadership of Barnett was thriving. We're all making dividends. We're all making money and all that stuff. But Ole forced his way in through a sale that we never knew what happened, which came back to haunt him on our sale, how he acquired his partnership. We were calling around our friends and NWA people wanting to know if they wanted to buy us out because we were ready to get out. Like I said, Jack was ready to retire after the Steamboat Youngblood feud and come back to Tampa and work in the body shop. I was still young. I was in my 30s. I didn't want to give up the business in its entirety. I was almost ready to give up the working end of it, but I wasn't ready to give up the business in general. I knew I still had some years and some good suggestions to offer the business to help it grow. So I decided to say, so we contacted Vince McMahon and worked out a deal with him, and it was real sketchy to say the least. We couldn't talk about it, of course. We couldn't share the news with any of our friends or anything like that. We had to keep it under wraps until after it actually happened there, and to keep something like that in a secret for all those months is phenomenal in the wrestling, but probably in the radio business too. You can't keep a secret. So it finally got out, and so we sold, made ourselves. We both basically retired and was running the body shop. And I got a call from Vince McMahon. Hey, one of my tag teams walked out on me. I need somebody. Will you and your brother come up for a brief period of time? I said, well, let me talk to Jack. I don't think he's really wanting to do it. He said, well, try to talk him into it. It'll be for a brief period of time, which we were only there for. We were only supposed to be there for 2 months. We ended up saying, I think, 10 months. And so it was a month too long for Jack. We went up. That's when we had our deal with Murdoch and Adonis, and it turned out to be a very successful run for us.
Well, and there's so much great stuff from that time period. I know that you like to go back and watch a lot of the old stuff. When you think about the Brisco brothers and maybe Jerry in particular, is there anything that jumps to your mind as a specific moment?
Specific moments? I don't know if there's anything necessarily a specific moment. so when I was growing up, and particularly through my high school years, we had you and Pat Patterson and, kind of the Stooges era. And a lot of people don't. I love that era. You were so good and so fun. But a lot of people don't know and realize your rich history with wrestling. A lot of people just think back to that era because the Attitude Era was such a big time for everybody. They don't always know. So I love the fact that we can watch a lot of these old matches, that we can watch, old NWA and old stuff and preserve the history, and being involved with you and the Hall of Fame and preserving that stuff. It needs to be shown to a lot of these younger generations. And
I got to tell you, that was probably the most enjoyable part of my career in the business, because I was just able. There was no pressure on us. Nobody fed us any lines. Nobody told us what we were going to have. It was all instinct. It was all old school type days. We just go out and have a good time. Pat hated it. I mean, in the beginning, he hated it. And I used to tell him, Pat, you and I worked all of our career. We worked 30 years to be respected in the business as legitimate workers. As somebody, but from now on in history, we'll go down to two stumbling, bumbling stooges. Don't say that. Don't say. So, of course, when he going out, I just start rubbing it. And yeah, Pat, you're going to be the stooge number one, and I'm going to be stooge number two for the rest of our life, for the rest of our career there. But it was so much fun. And I got to tell you, the guys backstage enjoyed it so much because they knew Pat and I. We weren't stooges, number one. We were, we're businessmen and always spoke our mind, whether things are right or wrong. And I just learned so much from Pat Patterson about the business side of professional wrestling and how to conduct yourself and stuff like that. I just owe that man so much. I mean, I really enjoyed being his partner out there. And we had some times, and some of the most memorable moments of Monday Night Raw was the Two Stooges. For a while, the highest rated segment on Monday Night Raw was the Stooges against the Mean Street Posse, who were also two guys that didn't have a clue what they were doing out there in the ring. Just they were friends of Shane's, legitimate friends of Shane McMahon, and they brought them in and threw them in the ring. All right, you guys are two pros. Teach them, show them what to do. So that's what we were tasked with doing there. But Stone Cold Steve Austin, Undertaker, Kane, Triple, all those guys. I mean, I probably took more Sunners than allowed. And Stone Cold. I mean, here's the thing, guys. You got two at that time. We're both in our 50s. So you got a bunch of guys, with the Takers of Stone Cold, who trying to maintain that growth and keep growing in the business. So they're not going to take exception on two old guys. They're going to go out and lay it in and beat the crap out of it just like they would anybody else. So you'll notice the chair shot that we got from Stone Cold and the bumps that the Undertaker would give us, the choke slam, the Kane. They weren't workmen. They were force, and man, they beat the holy crap out of us every night. We never bitched about a thing, but that's what we gained our respect from those guys who are doing. But I tell you, I rigged Stone Cold all the time. Yeah, you got a career out of beating up a 55-year-old man.
Well, and speaking of getting the crap beaten out of you, one of the highlights of that era is definitely your hardcore championship run out of that as well. I mean, that's another part of that era that, sticking out in my head. That's another time that I just think a lot of maybe my generation or even Hunter's younger generation, that's what we remember you as a hardcore champion and part of the Stooges. So how did the hardcore championship come about?
Oh, yeah, that's a real funny story. Thank you for asking that. I'm going to let you guys in on a story I don't think I've really shared before, because it wasn't really written that day for me to win the hardcore championship. And we're going along, and people forget Sergeant Slaughter was the original part of one of the Stooges. We had the three Stooges, of course, like Curly, Moe, and Larry. So we had Sarge, Pat, and Jerry. But Sarge was also at that time the commissioner of Monday Night Raw. So we needed Sarge in a more serious role and everything. So the writers come up, well, you know what, we're going to put that hardcore championship on Sarge so he can be a little bit more serious with the guys and all that stuff. So we're having a production meeting. After a production meeting, Vince and Kevin Dunn said, Brisco, can we see you for a little bit? And I said, yeah. So I'm thinking, what did I do? What am I getting fired over this time? You know, what am I doing? Because you're talking to two heavyweights of our business, you know. And so I come in. Well, we wrote this thing where Sarge is going to become, but we need Sarge as a more serious guy. Him running around with this hardcore championship will not fit the personality of the commissioner of Monday Night Raw. We'd like to put it on you. Do you have a problem with it? And I'm thinking, man, I'm 55 years old. I think getting hit by those trash cans, getting hit by the cookie sheet, getting all this, doing those damn boiler room matches with Mick Foley. Holy cow, I'm going to get the crap beat of him. But you know what? It's going to be fun. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. So that's kind of how I kind of morphed from Sergeant Slaughter. No, I don't think I've told this story on air before, but it's more from Sergeant Slaughter. Because they wanted a more serious Sergeant Slaughter to be commissioner, down to me where I could be the goofy guy and having a lot of fun with it. And that's what it was intended to do. And Mick Foley always got pissed off. And Brisco, I think you're going to go down as the greatest hardcore champion of all time. When it should be me. I said, you're right, but I am the greatest of all time. But having those matches, border room matches with Mick Foley, I mean, he literally drowned me. He nearly killed me in one of those things there. He had a football helmet on. He stuck my head down at a faucet. Well, that football helmet clogged the drain up, so he got all the water on. That water filled up and it's going into that mouth. And I became breathing. I'm gagging. I'm gagging for air. Finally, I just bust out of the damn thing. You know? I think I'm dying down here.
Well, and you pinned Crash Holly when he was sleeping. I mean, how insane is that? You took advantage of the 24/7 rule.
Well, yeah. Well, I got payback from Pat too on that 24/7 because, yeah, you know, my way of winning the title. I mean, I didn't have to beat anybody. You know, I didn't have to. All I had to do was go in and say, it was so funny. You know, Kid Rock was there, and we had Joe C in there. Hey, you know, the APA were paid to protect Crash. So Joe C goes in. Hey, Kid Rock wants to see you guys. Well, we're kind of working there, and well, yeah, Kid Rock, and you know, of course, the APA that okay, we're going to go do it, and they leave sleeping Crash there. So I get the bright idea, you know, I'm gonna get me a referee and get this title. I did. So I pinned a sleeping Crash Holly for it. Then my partner Pat, he double crosses me after I beat somebody. Actually beat somebody, hits me over the head with a champagne bottle and covers me, and he becomes the champion 1, 2, 3. So he becomes champion. So fast forward years later, Pat and I were doing a Monday Night Raw guest appearance on one of their celebration shows, and they come, hey, let's reenact the deal on it with the 24/7 deal. So they have Pat do it, and Pat gets it, and then they have me do it where you never see me beat Pat, you just see me standing over Pat with the belt like I beat him while he was down. So it worked out great. It was fun. So I can always say 2-time hardcore champion, 1-time 24 champion, greatest of all time. You know?
Absolutely. And as we kind of start to wrap up here with this interview, I do want to go back to the Hall of Fame weekend, which obviously is going to be so exciting this year. And there's so many events happening this year specifically for the Hall of Fame. I mean, we talked earlier, it's going to be bigger than ever before, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are, July 9th through 11th. We're going to have all of these events in Waterloo, and people should absolutely come to all of these events. In particular,
we want to get everybody in Waterloo area that what they call it, the Cedar Valley, they're involved in. They say you guys are missing out on one of the biggest events that come to Waterloo yearly, annually. I mean, I know you have Comic Cons coming, you have all these other events coming, but you never have the star status of guys that come in and take a look at the superstars that we read off at the beginning. It's going to be in Waterloo, and it's fan friendly. We're so happy to have you guys involved, the 99 Wave involved there, and you know, your sisters of stations that you have there. That it's going to be a great weekend. We got so much. We got Beers with the Boys, who is a fantastic way to cap our weekend off. It's JBL, myself, and D'Lo Brown and all the award winners that come in. We take questions from the audience. They're lighthearted questions about road stories, about having fun on the road, what we did to entertain ourselves on the road. Last year was Ron Simmons and JBL, and there were a lot of dams involved. So we hope this year is going to be great. So we have that. We have the softball game. We're hoping to have the Nemeth brothers in a comedy show during the week there. There'll be so much more. You'll get to meet Medusa. You'll get to meet Dolph Ziggler, Jimmy Jam, Freebird, Garvin, and just a host of others that Gordon Soda would say.
Well, and we're so very excited for that, and to be able to work with you guys on that. As we close out, Colt, do you have any final thoughts about this upcoming weekend and all the fun that we're going to have getting to hang out with these guys?
It's kind of a dream come true for me. I've come to the Hall of Fame numerous years in the past. Picked this up from you years ago at the Hall of Fame, and I've met so many. I mean, we're in the middle of Iowa, so it's not every day that we get, like you said, stars and pro wrestling Hall of Famers and stuff to come to the middle of Iowa and actually get to meet and interact with you. And this the whole weekend is such a fun experience. And like I said, getting to see you again and getting to interact with JBL and Medusa and stuff, it's a dream come true for me, being such a longtime pro wrestling fan and being able to be involved and work with you guys. So, and I got to say thanks for being able to come on here today and talk with us, because like you said, there's such a rich history with you and your brother, and I love the fact that we can help preserve a little bit of that and hear the stories and hear the behind the scenes, and it's just, I'm very grateful and very thankful for it.
Well, I appreciate it, and man, for years, since I took over the leadership of the Tragos wing there, I've been looking for a great media partner, and things just hadn't worked out right. I feel like we've got the best media partner we could possibly have, and the staff there at the Hall of Fame, Gabby, the office manager there, she is just fantastic. And Coach Miller, Jim Miller, a legend, 10 national titles, 11 national titles with Mike Doty, the entire staff there, all the volunteers that we have come in during the weekend. And folks, if you're any type of wrestling fan at all, you never step foot in that Hall of Fame, you gotta kick yourself in the butt and get over that Hall of Fame, because it is fantastic. Anybody, first timers that go there, you watch them, you walk around, you watch their expression, man. They're walking around with their mouth wide. I didn't know that. I didn't know this was in our city here. So get off your rear end, get over that Hall of Fame over there, and have yourself a good time. Say hello to Gabby and Coach Miller over there, and tune into 99 Wave, man.
A fantastic interview, and what an experience to be able to do that with the great Jerry Brisco, and many more along the way. Like he mentioned in the interview, JBL, Medusa, all coming up, and more that are on the horizon. You never know who you're going to get to run into in this industry. It's all about opportunity. It's all about timing. And we do want to give a huge shout out to the Hall of Fame, which the link is on the screen right now and also going to be in the comments of this video. Just going to be such a big event this weekend, July 9th through 11th, 2026. This is huge for everybody. And so be sure to go get your tickets for the banquet, get your tickets for some of the events, the softball game. Stop all your plans and go do all that.
They do do a pass for the whole weekend.
That's right, they do.
And
yes,
again,
an all access pass. Yes. So you can go to the website, get the prices for all those things, figure out what you need to figure out, and get there. Make sure that you do that. We've got a hotel associated with the Hall of Fame. We'll link that in the comments as well. We just want to make sure that all of the wrestling fans of this area, and if you're traveling from far away, that you guys can be just as much a part of this event as we're going to be, because we're wrestling fans and we know what wrestling fans want, and that is to be a part of something like this opportunity has not come around all the time in the past, and is
No.
going to be the happening of the century.
Absolutely, and this is, like I said, for us being big wrestling fans. For myself personally, it's a huge opportunity. I am very grateful to Mr. Brisco for taking the time with us today and talking with us. I could sit for hours and listen to that man talk. I mean, his stories, the behind the scenes, the rich history. I could sit for hours just listening to him, in which you absolutely can sit for hours and listen to these guys and talk and hear stories if you come to the Hall of Fame weekend. And it's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be huge. So.
Absolutely. And just quickly, I want to give a plug to Mr. Brisco's podcast as well, Stories with Brisco and Bradshaw. A lot of fun on there, and those two have quite the dynamic. The National Wrestling Hall of Fame, everything. It's just going to be so much fun. And we'll continue to plug that. All the links are going to be in the description below. And Colt, any closing thoughts before we go?
Closing thoughts are we're going to release videos every Wednesday. You don't know who's going to show up. We've got guests that are going to be popping in. That's the big thing for season 2 is we're going to have some guests. It's huge.
Absolutely. So that being said, we'll sign off. For Colt Powers, I've been Hunter Dietz, and this has been Between the Ropes, an On the Go Media podcast production.